Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back. This is the JR Wisdom channel. Once again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Today, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to be attacking this topic in reference to the Chris Watts and Sha Nann situation. It's a pretty hot topic that's going on right now. It's a documentary on Netflix. If you guys haven't seen it, I urge you to check it out. And the reason why I decided to talk about it was because of the nature of his situation that goes along with a lot of the videos I've done recently. And I had a subscriber recently ask me to kind of, from my perspective or my opinion, to break down the psychology of Chris Watts prior to him doing what it is that he did, which I'm not going to get into all of that. It's a pretty sad story. I just want to cover the parts as far as him and his wife and the relationship that they had prior to this incident happening, and him just basically not wanting to be with her in that aspect. So I'm going to touch on that based off, and this is going to be the mind of Chris Watts, obviously. So based off what one of my subscribers asked, she asked, I was wondering if you had the time, if you could please do a breakdown of the male psychology when a man actually decides he's going to risk the relationship with his woman. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about the acts. I'm going to just get right into it. This is in reference to a man. If you guys haven't seen it, he was married to a young lady. They got married in their 20s. They met about 10 years ago, and they actually got married back in 2012, back in North Carolina. He got a job over in Colorado in the oil industry, and she was working for one of these MLM companies, if I'm not mistaken. Prior to them getting married, some background on Sha Nann was that she was married previously. She suffered from low self-esteem, things like that. She was in a bad place, like a lot of people do during their, sometimes after divorce, when it's a pretty bad divorce. Along with that, she was diagnosed with lupus, which, further affected her in terms of, her self-esteem and things like that. So when she came across Chris basically messaged her on Facebook. They kind of hooked up like that and ended up dating and ended up getting married 2 years later at the time. So basically he was that guy who kind of boosted her confidence, helped her get back in the mode she was prior to getting divorced on her previous marriage, and basically just uplifted her and built her up. At the time, just to give you some background on Chris, he was actually 240 pounds, and throughout their relationship, he got down to 180. So he lost about 60 pounds as well. So they kind of complemented each other in that aspect as far as building each other up. This woman was head over heels over this guy, all right? And you can tell when you watch the documentary, the text messages and things like that, which I'm going to get into about some of these things, and basically what I found from how he was acting in regard to this and what I think about him based upon the documentary, in my opinion. So basically, they ended up getting married. They complimented each other, deeply in love with each other. He gets a job out in Colorado in the oil industry. They move out there, start, living basically the American dream. They end up having 2 children, and everything's going well. So throughout this time, he basically ends up meeting, this is in June of 2018, he ends up meeting a coworker. I believe her name was Nichol Kessinger, or Kessinger, however you want to pronounce it. He ends up meeting her on the job. And this is, like I said, it's June of 2018. Around the same time that he ends up meeting Nichol, he finds out that Sha Nann is actually pregnant with their 3rd child during this time. So the dates, it's kind of, everything is just not weird, but everything is kind of falling in line, so to speak, as far as the issues that arise. So I'm assuming at this time as well, when they end up becoming pregnant and him meeting Nichol, their marriage isn't the best. So at this time, I guess she decides to get some fresh air, and she goes with the kids, or decides to separate. She goes with the kids and goes to North Carolina, to, I guess, hopefully things get better sometimes by separating. I guess that's what their wish was, or their hopes were, that things would get better. So while they're apart, they're still interacting with each other and texting each other. But lo and behold, Chris is carrying on this affair with Nichol. He's telling Nichol that basically they're getting separated. He doesn't want to be with her anymore. This, that, and the third. Doesn't tell her anything about her being pregnant. And basically, Nichol is also thinking that he's the best thing since sliced bread ever. She's on the video. She's basically bigging him up, saying how he's such a great guy. You know, they're going dune sledding and stuff like that. And she's just thinking this guy is a cool guy. He's about to get divorced. You know, normal stuff that couples go through. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, he's still communicating with his wife off and on. You can see throughout a lot of her text messages that he's basically very apologetic. He's basically giving her mixed signals throughout the thing. He's telling her how much he loves her whenever she reaches out. So she's basically initiating all the contact. You have to keep in mind the mind of this woman. This is a pregnant woman who already has self-esteem issues in the past. She's pregnant. So with the hormones, if you've ever, obviously if you're a woman who's been pregnant, or if you've ever been with a woman who's pregnant, you know that she needs even more reassurance than if she wasn't pregnant. Very emotional, things like that, because of the hormones, so on and so forth. So he's not giving her the attention. He's completely, basically reactive in all of the conversations, as you can see in this documentary. He's very apologetic whenever she's basically like, hey, I need this from you. I don't want to come back to Colorado and you being this way, so on and so forth. And he's like, you know, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm this way. I apologize. When you come back, things won't be the same. Meanwhile, he's sleeping with this other woman throughout this time period before he flies back there. But I'll get to that, the 5 weeks that he spent before he flew back over to be with his wife over in North Carolina. And you notice throughout the conversations, he's very passive aggressive. She even says in the documentary, and you know, for lack of better terms, she says that I run the relationship. I'm the dominant one in the relationship. This is Sha Nann's words. I'm in charge of this relationship. So he's a very quiet, meek, very passive aggressive guy, very subdued. And you can see that throughout the documentary, even when he's being interviewed and interrogated. She stated that she runs the relationship, and he just seems like a yes man overall throughout this process. So throughout the text messages, you also see he's patronizing her. You know, he's basically sending mixed signals, obviously, because he really doesn't want to be with her. He just met this woman in June. She's already blowed his socks off at this point. And this is what I talk about in my other videos, that he was with his wife for technically 8 years, married 6. And he just met this woman basically in June. And here it is, June, July timeframe. He's already head over heels over this new woman, Nichol, or whatever. Did I say Nichol? I'm sorry. Yeah, her name is Nichol. I thought I might have messed her name up. Anyway, he's head over heels over Nichol at this point within a matter of weeks. So my thing is, and I'll get into the text messages here, some of the things that his wife, they're going back and forth. She's texting her friends to let the friends know what's going on between her and her husband. I guess trying to get advice, trying to get, you know, some type of feeling on what she should do. So, and I'll get into the text messages, like I said. But this is a man who obviously lost a lot of weight. He's feeling good about himself during this time. He's maybe getting attention from this woman, Nichol, on the job. He even says it himself that this woman blew his socks off. He didn't mean for it to go that way. He, according to him, never cheated on his wife. So this was something which, and I hope this answers my subscribers' question. This was something that basically he was willing to get rid of his wife over at this point, but he went about doing it the wrong way. as far as her making him feel a certain type of way, maybe he might have felt, even though he's still a liar at the end of the day, maybe she might have made him feel more like a man. I'm not saying that his wife deserved what she got, but maybe because in the relationship with his wife, even his wife is saying that she's in charge. She's running stuff, and this guy is probably just like a beta yes man a beta male provider being a yes man at this point. Over and over, yes, I'm sorry, you're right. You know, you can see on the text messages that they show that he's saying these things. So this probably got him in his mind where I like the way this woman is treating me. She makes me feel this way. I don't want to be with my wife anymore. And maybe that's, sometimes people arouse certain feelings in us that make us, not to this extent, but make us actually, and when I'm speaking, don't get me wrong, guys, I'm speaking in the context of going outside of your marriage. I'm speaking of going outside a relationship. I'm speaking of dealing with another woman and things like, not to say that it's right, but obviously this is what he did. So basically some of the things that Sha Nann was saying was that, and these are signs I was talking about, he didn't want to be intimate when he flew to North Carolina to visit her and the kids. Didn't want to be intimate, only kissed her once the entire time. Or they were away from each other 5 weeks and didn't touch it. She didn't even touch him. I mean, he didn't even touch her in this aspect. She was just like, I just want to cry. So this is a very emotional woman. This woman is with child at this time. She took a shower that night, which, you know, I guess that's their thing. If you take a shower, based off what she's saying, if she takes a shower, that should be a sign for him that she wants to be intimate with him. He said he just wasn't interested. And he said he's not. She confronted him, are you cheating? He said no. Her messages to her friends, I pray I get sex tonight. Even if he hates me, sex is sex. It's things like that she's saying. This woman is really in love with her husband, wants to be with her husband, wants things to work. He rejected her. Hasn't been with his wife in weeks. I mean, these are red flags. So I think she knows deep down inside this guy is dealing with another woman. Flies over, rejects her for sex, claims there's nothing wrong. The whole time when he was away, he didn't call to check on the girls, her or the girls. This is a pregnant woman, once again, not checking on her or checking on the kids, spending his time with this other woman. And she's just very vulnerable at this point. And I think he knew, not to the extent that he went to, but I think he knew at that point that he didn't want to be with her at the point, to the point where he was just going to divorce her. And this is kind of what happened. You know, he got the new self-image, lost weight, found this new woman that knocked his socks off. He had an option that became available. So he decided to move on. He decided to cheat. He detached himself from the situation overall. And his behavior throughout all of this is classic signs of a narcissist, as we like to throw that term around. And he's a psychopath. After what he did overall, he wanted to get caught as far as cheating, but he didn't want to get caught as far as what followed the next day, what he did, which I don't want to go into that on this video. But he's a narcissistic psychopath because he showed no remorse. He says that now, but how, you know, to go to the extent of doing what you did, no. You're a psychopath, you're a narcissist. You basically wanted to do this. You were married to a woman all of these years, and all of a sudden you meet a woman a few weeks and you go to this extent. Something is wrong with you, or for you to go to that extent, I don't think you loved your wife as much as you say you did, or your children for that matter. A man that would go to this extent, if you really, all you had to do, and I encourage all you men, sometimes you have to go through that divorce, that separation. But a guy like this, he just wanted everything to disappear. He just wanted his family to disappear and move on with this new lady he met, because he was just so head over heels. This is a guy also who had a scarcity mindset. You didn't truly love your wife. You didn't truly love your family. You like the newest thing that popped up. And basically it's just all out war. I think after everything happened, he basically decided to put his house up, you know, do all types of stuff after he did what he did. You know what I mean? Divorce, it's easier. It's just too easy to walk away. Guys get into things where they wanna resort to violence and things like that. That's guys with very weak individuals, scarcity mindset, and who aren't honest with their partners. And these are classic traits of this guy. And look where he's at for the rest of his life. You know, very, very weak individual, very passive aggressive individual, the way he went about things. And it's beyond me why somebody would do that to this extent, you know. But what I want to convey to the lady who's asking, or any woman who's asking, what are the signs? This is just more classic signs at this point. You may try to say this, you know, you should try to work through it. Sometimes some people just don't want to work through things. They don't want to work through things. And sometimes it's better to just walk away. Of course, she was blindsided in this situation, but she obviously had an attachment, as I say, and he didn't. And sometimes that attachment is the hardest thing to overcome, when one person is already there and you aren't. So in order to prevent this, which is the question I keep getting asked, you can't stop somebody from doing something that they've already made up in their mind that they want to do. And as far as no advice that I can give you, any coach, any counselor, any therapist, they can tell you certain things, but until you realize it yourself, you can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. You can't make anybody stay. You can beg them. You can go through the process. You can cry, which is what she was. Obviously, she said she was bawling her eyes out because she realized that this wasn't the typical behavior. This guy did not want her the way he used to. And she knew this. She was questioning herself. She was bringing it up to her friends. She was distraught. So what else? What else is there to do? You state your place. You can't force anyone to be with you. We're in even marriages, and I know you might say it's a cop-out. You can't force anyone, and I hope that this hits home for anyone, even you guys who are watching. Divorce, nobody really wants to go through divorce. But life goes on. There's always someone else out there for you. You don't have to resort to certain things, certain evils like this gentleman, like, I don't even want to call him a gentleman. This dude did. So that's my thoughts on it. That's my advice to anybody watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in. You can't stop people from doing what it is that they're going to do in terms of chasing what it is they want, who they want, and things like that. So with that being said, if you guys appreciate the content, if you guys like the content, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts on the situation. And as far as the signs of when somebody is no longer in love with you and things like that, let me know your comments, your experiences, things like that. Make sure you share this video if you feel like it'll be a benefit to someone. Please feel free to check out my other videos that'll be popping up here shortly as well. If you have any topics you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to email me or things like that. If you want any advice as well, email me as well. And with that being said, peace be upon you in the mercy and blessings of the Almighty, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. I'm out of here. Peace.